An almighty boom erupted from overhead, louder and more intense than the roar of thunder. Eyes instantly turned to the sky, searching for the source of the deafening noise. Some keen-eyed bystanders noticed it immediately, pointing upward. Too big to be a bird, too small to be a plane, but whatever it was hurtling down towards the ground, building speed, a red cape fluttering behind it. Blind panic spread through the assembled crowd, causing them to scatter as the object rapidly plummeted toward the earth. At its current speed, it looked primed to hit the ground with colossal force. Those that dared look back or found themselves stuck to the spot in abject terror saw it was a man that was falling out of the sky, and in Metropolis, that could only mean one thing. The figure came smashing down in the middle of the street, punching a huge crater in the surface of the asphalt. Violent shockwaves caused the ground to tremble. Cars swerved to avoid the crater, tires and brakes screeching in chaotic cacophony. One veered off the road and began barreling out of control towards the curb, and a group of fear-stricken pedestrians. They screamed as they saw the car heading towards them, only to stop inches away from a fatal impact, like it had been frozen on the spot or caught expertly by a gentle hand. In fact, it looked like it was even floating. The shock driver behind the wheel snapped out of his stupor, noticing his foot was still pushing down on the accelerator. In disbelief, he lifted it off the pedal and felt his car being slowly lowered back to the ground. Someone outside opened the driver's side door, and an arm, adorned in a blue sleeve, reached in to offer a hand. Need some help? The stunned driver looked up in awe. It was him. It was really him. Superman. A pained groaning came from the crater as the figure who'd been punched back to Earth started to stir. Equal parts gentle but firm, Superman helped the driver out of his vehicle and urged him to hurry to safety. Turning to face his opponent, the Man of Steel calmly walked toward the crater, where SCP-076-2 was still crawling out, bloodied and battered. He realized Abel was immortal. He had already withstood immense punishment in their fight, but with innocent lives at risk, Superman carried him high above the city. Barely able to stand, SCP-076-2 feebly gripped one of his onyx blades in the few still functioning fingers of his one remaining hand and swiped towards Superman. The sword connected with the Kryptonian's jaw and splintered ineffectively in two on impact, leaving barely as much as a scratch. His last-ditch attack having failed, the last of his strength was sapped, and Abel could feel the familiar fading sensation of his latest death approaching. He collapsed at the edge of the crater left by his impact, with an undeterred Superman standing stoically over him. With one glance from his X-ray eyes, Superman noticed something had been embedded within Abel's neck. It was small, no bigger than a grain of rice, and metal. SCP-076-2 had been surgically implanted with what seemed to be a tracking device, which could only mean someone was monitoring him. "Who sent you?" Superman asked, authoritative but never showing any signs of a temper. Abel chuckled weakly, coughing up blood. If he couldn't beat the Man of Steel in a fight, he could at least take a victory in death that would chip at this hero's moral code. The ancient swordsman had noticed the Kryptonian going out of his way to save innocence, and thought he had the strength to finish Abel off. He wasn't. There was nothing to lose, Abel thought. He'd wake up trapped in his stone cube soon enough. "I am just the first," he coughed, hearing the high-pitched whine of the device in his neck arming. "There will be others." As the words left his mouth, Abel's head exploded. Shocked and even slightly saddened, Superman took a step back. It hadn't been just a tracking device, but a nano-explosive device, detonating with the explosive force of a hand grenade. There was something sinister going on, and if Abel had been telling the truth, it was only the beginning. For a number of years, Foundation agents embedded within Metropolis had been gathering intel on an anomalous individual, a being of extraterrestrial origin with immense strength and powers the likes of which were far beyond that of any human being. Containing Kal-El, or Superman as he was known to the public, was not going to be an easy task. His abilities and status as a hero to the people of Metropolis, as well as the wider world, made it a formidable challenge. The fact that Superman was a beacon of hope to so many did not matter in the eyes of the Foundation. As far as they were concerned, he was an anomaly, one with the power to wipe out the entire human race. If there was as much as a 1% chance that Superman would be an enemy to the Foundation, then they considered it an absolute certainty and needed to contain him. Fortunately, their mission had some external support. Lex Luthor, head of LexCorp, a billionaire CEO, had a bitter and long-standing rivalry with the Man of Steel. While he'd constructed superweapons and made several attempts on Superman's life over the course of their prolonged two-person war, Luthor's most reliable weapon was his money. It allowed him to buy something only available to the ultra-wealthy: power. Through a series of underhanded deals, bribes, and even employing a few well-timed assassinations, Luthor lobbied the US government to fund the SCP Foundation efforts to capture Superman. Of course, officially, this motion was rejected, but Luthor knew this would happen. Instead, his plan relied on the Foundation's direct assistance filtering down to a shadowy sector of the government, one controlled by someone with nearly as much unchecked power as himself. Someone who not only shared his hatred for superhumans, but was also morally flexible enough to collaborate with the Foundation. And it just so happened that the person matching that description wasn't just a high-ranking official within the US government. She also had plenty of expertise of keeping superpowered beings locked up. Amanda Waller was covertly dispatched to the SCP Foundation, acting as a consultant, offering her expertise on clandestine operations. She had previously had success with her own secret off-the-books government strike team, Task Force X, a group of incarcerated, superpowered criminals forced to complete black ops on behalf of the government. To these inmates, Waller earned the nickname The Wall for her unwavering resolve and infamous ruthlessness, willing to do whatever it took, no matter how dark, to achieve her goals. In another life, she would have been a perfect fit for the Foundation. Waller's proposal was simple. After all, it was the one she often employed for her own ends. She recommended the Foundation gather up a specially selected group of anomalies. Individually, they wouldn't be strong enough to take down Superman, but working alongside each other could at least weaken him to the point that mobile task force operatives could move in and capture the Man of Tomorrow. The Foundation was initially dubious of this idea, uncertain as to how they were supposed to keep these anomalies under control and obedient whilst freed from containment. The concern was that nothing would stop these SCPs from escaping freely, disregarding any Foundation orders if there wasn't some incentive for them to keep in line. But Amanda Waller already had a tried-and-true solution. As she did with each iteration of Task Force X, Waller proposed implanting micro-explosive devices in the necks of each anomaly. These could be remotely detonated if any of them refused to obey an order, or if they tried to reveal to Superman what the Foundation was attempting to do. Built-in deniability and a short leash to keep this group of anomalies from causing havoc. After much debate and negotiation with the Foundation over which SCPs they were willing to potentially lose in order to capture Superman, Waller came up with a final list of candidates for this new squad. SCP-073 and SCP-076-2, immortal brothers Cain and Abel. The latter, an unrelentingly violent homicidal maniac, had previously served as a Foundation operative. The former, his sibling, reflected any damage inflicted upon him back at his attacker. Waller reasoned that while Abel could serve as a ruthless attack dog, Cain might turn Superman's own strength against him. Also chosen and implanted with a nano-explosive was SCP-096, the Shy Guy. The creature could not be viewed directly without activating its rage state, which caused it to travel at anomalous speeds in order to find anyone that did and kill them. Superman's speed would be hard for most anomalies to keep up with, but even the Man of Steel needed to see his opponents, something that could sick the Shy Guy on him. SCP-734, now simply referred to as the Adult, had grown up in Foundation custody, and as a result, he'd consistently scored highly on the Aislinger Loyalty Index. He also possessed an anomalous condition that attacked the skin, organs, and bones of other living beings, something that could be used as an invisible weapon against Superman. Chosen for similar reasons, SCP-811, the Swamp Woman, was also added to the roster. While her feral nature made her unpredictable thanks to a series of anomalous experiments, she could secrete a mucus-like substance that decomposes anything it comes into contact with. Each of the candidates was requisitioned by the Foundation, briefed on the mission, and fitted with an explosive implant. In order to prevent any of them triggering the Shy Guy's rage state, They were all provided with modified scramble contact lenses that would distort and pixelate SCP-096's face, though that wasn't the only modification made to the lenses. Waller requested one addition. Each of the anomalies lenses would alter the appearance of civilians, making ordinary people appear to be hideous zombies. Ever the expert in manipulation, Amanda Waller knew that Superman's true weakness wasn't just the rare element kryptonite, but his willingness to save and protect innocent lives at all costs. The SCP squad was given a falsified briefing, told that they were actually going to be clearing up an outbreak of SCP-008 in order to encourage them to attack civilians. The Wall reasoned that even though Superman could not save every life, but he would try to, and that would distract him long enough for the anomalies to gain the upper hand. The initial strike with Abel had gone exactly according to Waller's plan. Superman's focus was entirely drawn towards the sword-wielding maniac who had just been airdropped out of a LexCorp-provided plane as it did a flyover of Metropolis. While the Man of Steel and Abel had battled each other, the remainder of the anomalies were clear to infiltrate the city, led through the sewers by the Swamp Woman. All of them surfaced only a few blocks away from where Abel had landed, and while Superman was confronting him, the SCP squad emerged to a flock of civilians fleeing for their lives, or as their scramble lenses had them believe, a horde of SCP-008 infectees charging right for them. So they did what they were told they'd been sent in to do: clear out the infection. Naturally, SCP-096 could not stop itself. The moment a person's eyes caught sight of it, the Shy Guy had already zipped over to decimate them with its claws. SCP-734 leapt in eagerly, grabbing at what he thought were zombies, causing their skin to start painfully flaking away, exposing nerves, tissue, and viscera underneath. The adult was just happy for a chance to prove his loyalty to the Foundation. SCP-811 was startled by the oncoming zombies, but could easily use her anomalous abilities for self-defense. One ran right up to her, grabbing her shoulders and garbling something as if it was trying to speak, plead even, only to start decomposing on contact with her mucus. The Swamp Woman then absorbed the nutrients from the resultant gooey mess. The nearby screams of terror reached Superman's ears. His hearing was sharp and sensitive enough to detect sounds at any frequency or pitch, but even without that ability, it was impossible to miss the unfolding chaos a few blocks over. He rushed over, his movement exceeding hypersonic speed for a fraction of a second, while his eyes honed in on something else that was moving too fast for a human to perceive. A tall, pale monster with elongated arms and limbs, screeching as it raced around, attacking the citizens of Metropolis as they attempted to run for their lives. He immediately sprung into action, flying towards SCP-096. The speed at which the anomalous creature could move could rival Wally West, but Superman was faster. The normal formula for speed did not apply to him. His Kryptonian physiology, when powered by the rays of Earth's sun, allowed Superman to move beyond linear time. He wasn't just immeasurably fast, he was incommensurable, able to travel at infinite speed in zero time, instantaneously. And it was with infinite speed that the Man of Steel put himself in between the swipe of SCP-096's claws and its next innocent victim. On such contact with the dense molecular structure of Superman's body, the Shy Guy's arm broke like a twig. The creature stopped in its anomalously fast tracks and doubled over, screeching louder, not just in rage, but in unimaginable pain. It turned to face the last son of Krypton, bones snapping sharply back into place as its body healed from the injury, its wide, screaming mouth almost snarling in anger. Superman had seen it. There was no changing that. In fact, he had seen the Shy Guy in more detail than anyone ever had. Superman's eyes could see for thousands of kilometers at resolutions that humans couldn't even perceive. The Shy Guy took another swipe at the Man of Steel, but before it could fully bring the full might of its claw down, an uppercut had launched it off the ground and up into the sky. In an instant, Superman followed. He had already seen that the creature's dense skin could withstand most damage. With that in mind, he unleashed a barrage of powerful punches, sending SCP-096 hurtling in multiple directions. Superman flew past the out-of-control anomaly, arriving at a spot in the air it was about to reach before it had got there, in time to hit it again, causing it to change direction in mid-air, only to be overtaken and punched by Superman yet again. The remaining SCP squad watched as the Shy Guy was pummeled through the air, tossed like a rag doll before crashing into the ground with a bone-rattling impact, shrieking in seething rage. Just as it was trying to clamber up to stand, ready to make another attack against Superman, a huge icy gust of wind swept the spot where SCP-096 was standing. Superman unleashed a vortex of freezing air from his lungs, causing the anomalous creature's limbs to start to turn blue as flakes of frost formed on its skin. Within seconds, the Shy Guy was literally frozen to the spot, unable to move at all, no matter who saw it. Seeing this, both SCP-734 and SCP-811 rushed to launch a counterattack against Superman. Thanks to their scramble lenses, they saw the Man of Steel as a more powerful SCP-008 instance, one that would take the pair of them to stop. As he hovered in midair, they both clambered onto cars and leapt towards him, each grabbing onto the ankles of his boots. Together, SCP-734's skin-eroding abilities and SCP-811's decomposing mucus began eating away at the Kryptonian's body. But his invulnerability did not just come from having a denser molecular mass than humans. Superman, and the costume he wore for that matter, was unfazed by contact with the adult and the Swamp Woman, thanks to his bioelectric aura, radiating within a few millimeters of his skin. With ease, he kicked both of his legs until the pair of anomalies came loose and fell to the ground. Then, speeding down towards them, Superman threw both SCP-734 and SCP-811 into one of the nearby cars abandoned by its driver. Shutting the doors, he effortlessly snapped off the handles and quickly welded the seams of the vehicle shut with the searing, focused heat of two beams that shot from his eyes. Within seconds, two more of the SCP squad were trapped, unable to escape, which left only one. Cain had been hanging back ever since arriving. He was not keen on the idea of slaughtering the numerous civilians of Metropolis, even if the scramble lenses had made them appear to be SCP-008 zombies. This other figure, hovering closer, towering and imposing, and yet calm and collected, was enough to give Cain even further pause. He watched Superman saving innocents, avoiding killing any of the other anomalies sent to stop him. This was no monster. There was no infection. SCP-073 realized he'd been lied to. They all had. Kal-El's attuned senses could smell something otherworldly about this next opponent, beyond just the beryllium bronze prosthetics that replaced his arms and legs that seemed to be powered by some magical blue flame. Knowing he had a vulnerability to magic, Clark didn't want to wait for Cain to attack first. Instead, he did the one thing that Superman always does. He offered to help. I know someone else has put you all up to this, and judging by that frequency I can hear coming off your neck bomb, I think I know who, he said calmly. Stand down, and I'll find them before they can harm you. Cain sighed. He knew there was no way out of this. If he disobeyed the Foundation's mandate, Waller would detonate the explosive. Sorry, they won't let me, SCP-073 answered, his voice cold, though his apology had been genuine. As Cain charged, Superman flew straight toward him. He struck Cain with enough force to knock him down, only to feel the power of his own punch deflected back at him. The Man of Steel staggered, his boots indenting the asphalt as he tried to steady himself. The Kryptonian felt something he didn't often feel, pain shooting up his own jaw. Though he wasn't the only one, Cain seemed unharmed, though the same immeasurable pain was coursing through him, too. Superman could not hit him, not without taking the full brunt of the damage. Instead, thinking quickly, he focused his vision, tuning it to see through Cain's skin. Finding the exact spot where the nano-explosive had been implanted, he'd have to time this perfectly if it was going to work. Anyone watching would have seen Superman vanish from Cain's front and reappear behind him in an instant. Cain felt a sting of pain on the back of his neck, reaching his metallic fingers there, only to wipe away a small amount of blood. He looked over his shoulder, seeing the back of Superman, his cape billowing. An almost identical bead of blood trailed down the Man of Steel's own neck. In the palm of his hand was the tiny explosive. He had been listening to Cain's individual atoms, waiting for the exact nanosecond that he could dash past, pluck the implant from under his skin, and withdraw his hand quick enough to not leave any permanent damage on either of them. Cain was stunned into silence, but he was impressed. Holding the nano-explosive up in his hand, Superman calmly addressed those listening in. "I've taken care of your friends," he said, activating his beacon to alert the watchtower as he spoke. "Mine will be with you shortly." The Foundation hadn't been prepared for this eventuality. It was time to find out what the Justice League made of what they had been doing. Now check out Leaked, Batman Submissive to SCP-076, and SCP-5049, Demon Dan vs. John Constantine for more.